just thinking how to really introduce you. These are lovely friends of ours, Vicky and Andy. We refound Betel. We had connection with Betel way back to sort of 2000. And when we moved north, we were looking for a church and just couldn't find a church that really was kind of what we were looking for. And we were out in Hexham one day, just being tourists. And we're just walking along, and there was a cafe with the Betel logo on it. And I said to Leslie, either someone's nicked Betel's logo, or there's a Betel in Hexham, which was bizarre. I hadn't got a clue that there was one there now. And it turned out it was a Betel cafe, and the first person in the cafe that we spoke to was Vicky, who immediately told us all about what Jesus had done for her, and it was just lovely, and we felt the Lord reconnecting us with Betel after a few years where we hadn't really had much to do with them, and we were so blessed in that time because it gave us 3 years of reconnecting with them up north. It meant we had to go an hour over the Pennines every Sunday to worship with them, but it was just lovely, and we've made some great friends in Andy and Vicky. You will be blessed this morning with what they have to bring you. Listen, let the Holy Spirit speak to your hearts today. So which one is up first? Andy. Welcome. Let's welcome him, shall we?
Okay, good morning, everyone. I just want to say thank you first. Thank you for welcoming us here, myself and my wife. We really felt welcome as soon as we walked through the doors here. And I really enjoyed that time of worship. I really felt a connection with God. And I think us sharing now is going to be hard to even add to that, because God's already done something. God's really doing something. I mean, even praying there for you. I mean, God's really doing something in this place, and it's really good to be a part of that this morning. It's a blessing to be a part of that. So you're gonna have a Welsh accent this morning and then a Scottish accent. So I don't know if you're gonna need a translator. I hope not. I'm gonna try and speak as clear as possible. So myself and my wife, we're both part of Betel, and if I can sort of explain Betel in a nutshell, it's restoring broken lives. It's a ministry that helps people with addiction, helps people struggling in life in general, and our hearts are a big part of that. I oversee the men's house, and my wife oversees the women's house, and our hearts are really for that because we've come from a broken background ourselves. We both struggled with addiction many years ago, but we've overcome addiction because one touch from the King changes everything. Like we heard just now, and one of my favourite scriptures is Ezekiel 36:26, or it's 26:36. It's on my phone there, but I give you a new heart and I put my spirit in you. And that's so real to me because that's what Jesus done for me. He gave me a new heart. He took away the stony, stubborn, arrogant, proud heart, and he gave me a new heart and put his spirit in me, the Holy Spirit, which led me away from my life of addiction. So I'm going to share a little bit of that with you. So my name's Andy. I'm 40 years old. And I grew up in a small town just outside Swansea, a town called Llanelli, and it's an old steelworks town, and the steelworks sort of went out of the town when I was growing up, and the town became there weren't much work there, and a lot of drugs came into the town. Like a lot of seaside towns, they become where once they were flourishing, they become like ghost towns with all the work's gone out from them. And a lot of drugs come into the town. I grew up I grew up, I had a good upbringing. My parents brought me up the best they could. I grew up in a council estate. I went to school and everything was okay. But at the age of 13, 14, I started experimenting in drugs. I started hanging around with the wrong crowd of people. And I sort of felt like I fitted in that, whereas before that, I never really felt like I fitted in anywhere. But when I started to experiment in the drugs and started to hang around with the wrong crowd, I felt like I fitted in. So that was my start down a journey of the wrong path. And I started smoking cannabis, I started taking amphetamines, and I started going out on the weekends and drinking and doing all the partying and doing all that sort of stuff. The experimenting in the drugs. But then the experimenting didn't stop at experimenting. I carried on and I carried on and I carried on. And I sort of maintained that lifestyle for about 10 years, where I'd have a job for a little bit and I'd be doing okay. And I thought I had everything under control, and then I'd be back on the drugs again. And that was my cycle for about 10 years, doing well for a bit, then not so well, doing well for a bit, then not so well. And I thought I had everything under control. I thought I was maintaining it. I thought it was okay. What I was doing weren't that bad. I was only smoking a bit of weed. I was only going out on the weekends and doing a bit of partying. And I thought it was okay, but slowly my life was spiraling out of control. Slowly. But I didn't really realize, you know, I'm talking from the age of 15 up to the age of 25, I thought I had everything under control, but I didn't. And then my dad died when I was about 25, and something happened when my dad died in me. I had this sudden fear of death. My dad died of lung cancer. He got diagnosed with lung cancer, and then 6 months after he got diagnosed, he died. And a real fear came over me of death. And I was smoking at the time myself, and I was dabbling. I was involved in drugs on and off quite heavily by then, and I had this fear of death, and I thought, I need to stop what I'm doing. I need to stop smoking. I need to stop taking drugs. I need to stop and get myself right. And I had this real fear and real anxiety about death. But as much as I wanted to stop taking drugs and stop the smoking, I couldn't. I just couldn't do it. And my mum at the time was a heavily an alcoholic. So she got worse when my dad died. So I had this fear of death, and I also had this sort of fear that my mum was going to die next. And I was sort of preparing myself for that as well. And then I came across heroin. And it's one thing I said I'd never, ever do, but I ended up doing it. And the first time I took heroin when I was 25, it felt like the answer to everything. You know, all the pain I was feeling, all the fear, all the worry, it just went. It just went. And it just felt like the right thing to do. But as you know, if you've ever seen or know anyone that's been involved in heroin, it completely destroys lives. Completely destroys lives. I was doing things that I never thought I would do. My morals totally went. And I started to hate the person I'd become. I hated what I was doing to my family, to my friends. But I just couldn't stop. And I tried various ways to stop. I tried drug counselors. I tried programs. I tried methadone. I tried Subutex. Counselling. I tried locking myself away for the weekend and doing a cold turkey. And some of these things were okay for a little bit, but I kept going back, and I kept going back, and I kept going back. And then I ended up in the worst area of my town, a street called Station Road, and I ended up in a bedsit there. And I remember in this bed set, I had just a bed, I had a TV with no aerial in there. I just had a DVD with about 4 DVDs that I would just watch. And I thought, I just remember thinking, what's happened to my life? What's gone on? And I remember my mum telling me many years before, when I first started dabbling in drugs, she said, you'll end up in Station Road like all the rest of them. And I was like, no, I won't. I know best. And then and my mum's words just were ringing in my ear, you know, that I was there. I was right where she said I'd be, 10 years down the line. And I just, you know, I was just in such a desperate place, such a dark place, where I seen there was no hope, there was no light at the end of the tunnel. And if I'm honest, totally honest, I'd say I'd been in that place for about 2 years, and every single day I didn't really care if I lived or died. I wanted to end my life, but I didn't have the guts to do it. And every day was that no hope, no light at the end of the tunnel. And I just felt so hopeless. But I really believe around that time, I cried out to God in desperation. I mean, I'm not saying I got on my knees and I cried out, God, you know, but I believe that God really heard me in those times where I was like, what is going on? What's happened? And just round the corner from where I was living in the bedsit, it's a place called Choose Life, and it's a drug and alcohol centre run by a Christian guy called Alan Andrews. And I started going there, and I just started going there just because all my money was going on drugs. I started going there just for some food and to be around people and somewhere to go throughout the day, because you could have a warm meal there, you could have cups of tea. So I just started going there for that. And the guy Alan, you know, a couple of things happened, and I know it was God now, but I didn't at the time. There was 3 main things that happened. And the first was I was outside the centre one day, and there was a lad who'd been to Betel, the ministry we're from, who'd left, and he was doing really well. And he was sharing his testimony in the place just opposite the centre. And I'm sitting outside there, and Alan, the man who runs the centre, he's trying to get me in to hear this testimony. He's saying, come on, you need to come in here and hear this. And I'm like, I don't want to hear it. Honestly, I'm all right. I don't need to hear it. And he's like, no, you need to come in and hear it. And I think we argued a little bit back and forth, and I ended up just going, come on then. And I went in and heard this lad's testimony. And I remember he was a lad, he was about 5 years younger than me, who'd been in and out of jail, been in and out of young offenders. He'd been on methadone since he was at a young age, prolific thief. And he was sharing his testimony, and he was sharing how God had changed his life, how God had touched his life and totally transformed and changed it in this place, Betel. And when I heard this lad's testimony, it done something in me. It gave me a little seed of hope, a little seed of hope. I mean, I was still very skeptical. I didn't quite believe what he was saying was true. And I saw what I'd done. I observed this lad for a little bit. I was going to the centre, and he was working in there. And I seen something in him, which I know now was Jesus. I seen a light in him. I remember one day he was in there, and one of the centre users came in and was shouting at him and swearing at him. And he done something that I'd never seen before. When the lad left after swearing and shouting at him, he just goes, oh, Jesus, bless him, Lord, bless him. And you know, that really done something for me. I seen that, and I seen something I'd never seen before, where I thought, you know, you should be angry with him. You should, you know, he's come in, he's give you a load of abuse, and you just want to pray for him and a blessing. And I just seen light in this lad's life. And it attracted me. But it still took me a long time. This is in about a space of a year that happened. I heard the lad's testimony, and then I was outside the centre a couple of months after that, and the guy who runs it, Alan, was sharing, he was just talking, there was a few of us outside, and he was talking about the parable of the lost sheep in Luke, where Jesus leaves the 99 and goes after the one. And I heard him tell this parable, tell his story, and something happened in me. I got offended, and I went back to my bedsit, and in me I was, who's this guy calling a lost sheep? I felt like he was talking directly at me, and I was like, he doesn't even know me really that well. How can he call me a lost sheep? Who does he think he is? And that's what, and I was really going over it, and I had to look within myself, and I thought, why am I so offended with what this guy said? And I was offended because it was God speaking directly to my heart, directly where I was at that time, and it was truth. What was spoken was truth. And it made me look at myself and see that I was lost. And I didn't want to, even though I knew I was lost, I didn't want to accept it. I didn't want to believe it. I still thought I could fight through myself and scrape my way out of the mess I was in. But God directly spoke to me that I was that lost sheep, completely lost, completely broken, and I needed help. I needed him. But I didn't really know that at the time. And then this is how stubborn I was. It took a few months after that again. I was drawn to this place. I was drawn to these Christian people. And I'm there another night, and they close it on a Monday about 5 o'clock. And they have a small little prayer meeting afterwards. So that they were like, do you want to join us? I was like, yeah, go on then. I didn't have nowhere else to go. So I joined them. And there's about 4 of us there, 2 of the staff members and 2 of us, centre users. And they played a worship song, Bless the Lord, O my soul, 10,000 Reasons. And they played that worship song, and then they offer if we wanted prayer. And I was completely broken. I was, and I was at a place, I was so desperate. I was like, yes, I want prayer. I need something different in my life. And I remember 2 of them praying for me, and it felt like they were praying for, I don't know, about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And they started praying in tongues, which I didn't know what tongues was at the time, but I could hear them praying, and I felt this peace come over me. And I ended up falling, not falling on the floor, but I ended up it was like they were praying for so long that I ended up laying on the floor, and they were praying over me and praying over me. And I felt something heavy lift off me. I felt something heavy just lift off me. And I went away from that meeting that night, and I didn't really think nothing of it. I woke up the next morning, and I'm walking out my flat. I don't know where I was going, but this song, Bless the Lord, O my soul, was ringing in my head. I couldn't get it out of my head. And I had a joy that I hadn't felt in years and years and years and years. And I just need to explain this a bit better. Bearing in mind, for about 3 years, I wanted to die every day. I wanted to end it all. And then I wake up this one morning with this song ringing in my head and a joy in me that I can only explain like I used to feel when I was a kid at Christmas or something like that. I felt like there was hope. I felt there was going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. And I just knew God was real there and then. I'd sort of never not believed in God before that. I'd always believed, because my mum used to tell me about God and stuff, but she was a believer, but she never really practiced and went to church. But she'd tell me about God. She'd say she was praying, there was crosses in the house and all sorts. But I never disbelieved in God, but I never felt like I needed God in my life. Until that time where I 100% knew that God was real and he'd done something in my heart there and then. And that's why I use that scripture which I came across many years later when I went to Betel, that I give you a new heart and I put my spirit in you. I take the heart of stone away. And what I mean is that I knew God, that I believe there and then, he changed my heart. And he put the Holy Spirit in me. And that led me to come away from where I was. Because that day I made a decision. I remember going up my friend's house. And bear in mind, I'm still taking drugs at this time. I've had this sort of encounter, but I went up my friend's house and he's smoking cannabis. And I'm telling him, I'm like, oh, God's real. He's 100% real. I'm going to this place, Betel, where I've heard this lad's testimony. And God's going to completely change my life. And he's like looking at me, he's going, all right, all right. He's just like, and I'm like, no, and I'm excited because I've had a touch, and I'm excited, and I'm telling him, and I don't know what he thought. He must have just thought I'd lost my mind or something like that. I don't know, but I know in me that something had changed. I knew there was a hope for my life. I knew God had better for my life, but I knew I had to get away from where I was at that time. And hearing our lad's testimony about Betel, I went to Alan, the guy who runs the centre. I said, I need to go to this place, Betel. I need to, I need to change. I can't do it here. I need to be away. So I go to Betel, not really knowing what Betel is or what it's about, and I land in Betel. Around a load of Christian people. I don't know what I was expecting, but I just knew it was better than what I was doing before, and I knew God had a plan for my life. I knew he had a future. I knew I had a hope. That the scripture, Jeremiah 29:11, I have a plan for your life. I have a hope and a future. And I remember hearing that scripture, and I remember also seeing a sign in Betel, Birmingham, where I went to first, and it said, God can't change your past, but he can change your future. And when I seen that, I just knew that God was going to do something. I knew there was a hope for my future. And then it was a long process, because bear in mind, I'd only been to church for funerals and weddings and things like that before that. So, now I'm in a place, a structured environment, where they have a devotion every morning, groups on a Tuesday night, church on a Friday night, church on Sunday morning. So I'm getting fed a lot, the Word of God, which was great, and I loved it. I didn't really understand it all, first of all, but I loved it. And then I also loved being around good people and doing the work and going out and doing the day-to-day stuff. And a lot of people say they struggle their first couple of weeks or couple of months in that sort of environment. But if I'm honest, I loved it. I loved going out to work. I loved doing things with the guys, and it's just, I felt like a sense of brotherhood, that people were around me who wanted to support me and help me, and I just loved it. And as time went on, God started to speak to me more. I ended up getting baptized, and I really, felt I needed to give my life fully to the Lord. And as I went on, you do a year to 18-month program in Betel, and then they'll either help you move on or you can stay and help out there. And I really felt that I, needed to lay my life down for the sake of others and to help others who'd been in the same situation as I had. So I stayed on in Betel, and I spent 4 years in Birmingham, and then I went up. I learned a lot of landscaping in Birmingham, doing patios, fencing and stuff like that. And then I had an opportunity to go up and run the garden and landscaping business up in Hexham after 4 years. So I took that opportunity, went up to do that. And then I became part of the leadership team there. And then I met my wife, Vicky. I met my wife Vicky, and then that was another sort of process as well, because I liked Vicky, and then she ended up moving down to Birmingham, and she spent 2 years down in Birmingham, in the Betel down in Birmingham, while I was up there. So that was a difficult time as well. But then God brought us back together, and we've been married just over a year now. Just over a year. And like I said, both different accents, so I think that's how it works so well. We don't understand each other, so it works. Sorry. But, you know, and we both serve in Betel at the moment. I supervise the men's house, and she supervises the women. And we play a big part in the leadership team there. We support Dave and Beth, our pastors. Yeah, we just love what we do. We don't know if that's what God's got for us forever, but at the moment that's what we're doing, and we love being part of that, and we love seeing people's lives get changed and transformed. We love to see the restoration. You know, a thing that we see, we live amongst miracles every day, and I think we get complacent with that sometimes. It becomes the normal that we see people come in completely broken, and then come to a stage where it's like a light comes on in their eyes, where you see they come in and they're like dead in the eyes and lost, and then all of a sudden, boom, a light comes on. And that's amazing to see, and I think that's what keeps us doing what we're doing, I think, that we see God really moving in people's lives, and, you know, it's amazing to do that and be part of that. I think I'm going to give Vicky some time to share.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm going to speak really slow, and if I start to pick up again, can you just say that to me and I'll get it. So, my name's Vicky. I come from a small town in Scotland on the west coast called Greenock. Mine and Andy's story is similar, but it's different as well. So I grew up in a broken home. My dad ran away with another lady. He married her. And I have brothers and sisters as well. But I grew up in my house with just my mum and my brother. She married when she was 16 and was divorced when she was 22. So she had me and my brother between that. So she was a yummy mummy. And she did her best to love on us, to care for us. She cherished us. I never had a mum that had different men in the house. She did cleaning jobs to provide for us, but it wasn't enough. You see, why wasn't it? I was missing the father heart. So I felt rejected. So no matter where I went, I was a champion disco dancer for Scotland. And even within that, I didn't feel loved, I didn't feel accepted. I don't know why, looking back, why it was so intense for me, but it was a big thing, even in that group. I would always put myself down. I mean, we didn't have nothing. I grew up in high flats. But within them high flats, they were run by drugs. So if my grandfather came up to visit us, they would be on walkie-talkies, and they'd let him in, they'd know who it was. So it was very controlled. So at a young age, I was instilled with a lot of fear and anxiety, because I'd see people getting chucked we lived at the top of the high flat, you see, so being dangled, and it was just normal. But I didn't know what a drug addict was. I never knew what a junkie was. I just knew that people's reactions to stuff were an overreaction, and there was a lot of fighting and trouble and stuff like that. So when I was 14, I took heroin. 2 weeks before I was 15, actually, I rebelled against my mum and ran away. She didn't know it with a boy. and we took lots of different drugs together. So I tried cannabis, you know. They say one thing leads to another, and for me it certainly did, because I was always chasing the next high, the next buzz, because I didn't like my reality. I was in a lot of pain. I'd see people drinking and taking drugs, and they were happy, they appeared to be happy. Well, they weren't the next day until they started that cycle again. Even now, you know, people see people, I can see pain in people, I don't know. So I ran away to another town, and my poor mother, she didn't know where I was, and I was 16, I got caught shoplifting. And the policeman, because my mum had reported me missing to the police, nobody knew where I was. My dad's family knew where I was, but they didn't tell my mum, because they were in that lifestyle. To tell you a bit of background, my nana sold drugs, so my whole family, my dad's side are all, I've lost a lot of my family with that, to drugs or alcohol. Cousins, uncles, grace of God, I get out of it. Many of them, unfortunately, still haven't. In class, I stopped counting in my year. At school, it's 16 of my friends, because that drug come in, heroin, and it wiped quite a lot of my generation out. So to be at home, my mum wouldn't allow me to do that, because she loved me. So I wouldn't be allowed to take drugs. It was all hidden. So when I ran away with this guy, the policeman told my mum where I was, so I was 16. But of course, I was a heroin addict then. So when my mum pleaded with me on her knees, come, we'll get you help, I was just like, no. But you see, the relationship that I was in at the time, he filled me with a lot of bad stuff, like your family don't love you, they don't care about you, you're this, you're that. I believed it, and I took on them labels that he put on me. It was very volatile, violent in every way that you can imagine. And I managed to escape that. I jumped out the bathroom window and broke my arm and went to Greenock, back to my mum's house. So again, I was trying to be clean. We went to America for 3 months, yeah. When we arrived there, we were going to my mum's friends, so we went for 3 months. I got 3 months worth of methadone to take with me. And I thought, right, this is it, I'm going to do it. I don't want to be like that, you know. So I was fighting, a little fight in me, a little fire, like, come on. When I arrived there, the next day, I was probably, and I'm not kidding, I was probably about 6.5 stone, no teeth, hardly any hair. Covered in, because you see I put needles in my arm and everywhere. So I was covered in sores and wounds, open wounds. My mum's friend that we went to, her name was Shirley. Now I remember Shirley growing up, she was wild, she was a party girl, so I thought I'll go there and with my methadone, be great. Little did I know, Shirley was a Christian, yeah. And the next day it was her daughter's birthday, so we're all out the back, lovely house, she's done really well for herself, and the pastor was doing baptisms in the pool. So I'm manifesting, I am shouting and I'm swearing at my mum, what the heck basically have you brought me to? And she's on her knees again, as my mum was, pleading with me many times, please, you said you wanted help, this is the help, you need to try. So I was swearing and stuff, and the pastor just put his hand out and he said, come. And that fear just went, and I got in the pool. And then I was with them, they were teaching me to drive, I got baptised, and I was speaking in tongues, and that was all great, and I seen that there was more to life, that I could have a new life. I didn't need to be like that. But of course, 3 months were up, and I came back to Greenock. And I think it was maybe travelling tourism then I started. But of course, the old ways, the old habits, the old behaviours quickly kick in. You have to watch your company. So there you are. I was quickly a heroin addict again. You see, people don't grow up and think when I'm older I want to be a prostitute or put needles in my arms. I wanted to be a policeman, a policewoman or a nurse or something like that. I had a desire. But obviously that wasn't the path that I chose, because it was. I made bad choices. You know, and the devil comes in many forms, and he comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And he did a good job at doing that, because I kissed the grave, but I get given another lifeline. There was a ministry called Teen Challenge, who had buses and outreaches, and I'd go to them and I'd have my bag of needles, and I'd feel really exposed, and I didn't understand what sin was, not really, you know, but it felt dark. But I know that they were good people, and they'd invite me to their house. I was not a kind of person you invited to your house at the stall, because you see, with that habit that says, feed me, and you do it, not intentionally. You know, my heart was always in the right place. I didn't want to rob these people, but I did. And again, time and time, they just loved me. You know, that was very attractive. It was alluring. There was something in them, you know, because wherever I went, people just took until I had nothing to give. But they just showed me the love of Christ. There's something in that. So I was like, Lord, there's got to be more than this. My mum was faithful. She's my best friend, but I hated her. I hated everything. I hated what my life came to. I hated me. Forgiveness is a wonderful thing, and it's a choice to let things go and move on. Because it says in the Bible, doesn't it, the old is gone and the new has come. You know, and with my mum, she's so faithful, so loyal. She never gave up. And one day I heard her in my madness cry out, God help me, take my daughter. Take my life, make my daughter okay. And I was saying, shut up, shut up. You know, when I'm saying that I went to America, it wasn't the start of, it was a journey, because I'm 43 now. And I only came to Betel in 2017, so what's that, 6 years ago. So it was a vicious circle and a vicious cycle for me. You know, it wasn't just one touch and boom. It's been an ongoing thing, and I've never gave up trying, and he's never gave up on me. And he says, didn't he, I'll never leave you and I'll never forsake you. But until I came to a point in my life when I was ready to go all in, because I kind of just go in, you know, that in, out, shake it all about. No, because I'm full on, extreme to the max. I think I've described the kind of person that I was. You know, so to know that there was a man called Jesus that loved me and accepted me for just who I am without giving anything. Coming to Betel, the women, they pour into you and they tell you the truth. Because we're good at looking in a mirror and feeding the lies, yeah? But they instill good stuff into me, which has carried me. It really has. I'm so pleased that I had that opportunity to go there and that we can just serve her now. I had a lovely chance with my dad. My dad, like Andy's, died of cancer. My dad was an alcoholic and very violent as well. But a few years, 2012 he died, but I had that chance to put things right with my dad, and he apologised. He always had plenty to say, but unfortunately for him, and I laugh about it, he had from smoking and being an alcoholic, he ended up stomach, lung and throat cancer, but he couldn't speak because he was too a proud man. He wouldn't get the voice box fitted, so he was talking to me and it would all, you know, come out his neck. But so he wrote it all down, and he wrote a note down for me, and he would just tell me how proud he was of me. I didn't realise for years what I was missing from that. So that instantly, and that again, that was the father heart, seeking stuff to satisfy, to fulfill the discontentment, the unsatisfaction there. That gave me comfort, but that was very temporary. You know, I have an amazing husband, but he can't give me what Christ. Do you know what I mean? And we have to put him first. So anyway, I came to Betel. My mum put me on a train in Glasgow. And if that was the window on the train, she was like, you don't have a home to come to. This is the end of the road here for you. God bless you. I love you. Beat it. On you go. So I'm crying. I'm telling everybody on the train. I'm going to rehab, and she's sending me there. Like, when I got there, the love of Christ was all over that. And I knew I was done with that old life. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was very poorly when I arrived there as well. We lived in a flat there with 5 women, yeah. And then God took us, maybe about 8 months later, to this beautiful house with 26 bedrooms. 2 sets of bunk beds in each room. No detox. Men and women, separate. Nobody can get benefits. They sign you off your benefits. You'll get P&P there. Prayer and paracetamol. That's it. No methadone, no Valium. You see, to come to Betel, you have to be at the end of that. I've done that. I've been to psychiatrists. I've been in prison. I'm not glorifying or really want to talk too much about that. It's all rubbish. You know, coming here, it was life-changing. But again, it's like everything in life, you've got to want something. You see, when you see somebody on that street and you think, oh gosh, they're in a bad way, they've got to want help. Wanted help. You know, so back when I was 14 and I made the wrong choice, I was 37 when I came here and I made the right choice. And God has blessed us so, so much. We don't have financial riches, but I'm spiritually rich. And I have an amazing man. And I have an amazing mum. And I have amazing friends. We're on a journey, like everybody here, and we just trust God daily. And we don't know who's going to come in, like us as well here, one day to the next, you know. Unfortunately, in our sort of game or job, I believe we're ambulance drivers for the Lord. Yeah, take them to heaven. Come on. Unfortunately, not everybody stays, and we've lost a lot, and recently we have as well. We just keep building, we keep giving, we keep serving. You can't focus on that, you know, like the people that they're dying, you know, because they don't feel loved or compelled or moved to change. We have 7 women in just now. How many guys? About 15 that are on fire and serious. And we just serve, yeah. I don't want to really say much about my past. Yeah. Do you want to ask any questions? Come up. Come on. Does anybody get any questions that we can maybe... Yeah.
So if these people are coming in, I'm an ex-heroin addict.
Yeah, sure.
How on earth do you manage their healthcare needs if they're not allowed methadone Substax or anything else? They've just got to talk cold hard rattle.
Yep, bareback it. You see, for me, being an addict for years, I was forced sometimes to a rattle. A rattle's not going to kill you. The drugs are going to kill you. So for me, being in that for all the years that I was in it, here's an example I was sharing last night when I went to prison. They stopped my methadone because I could never ever stick to a methadone program. I would always use heroin on top of it or Valium. So when they test you, when you go in there and you've got that in your system, they're not going to give you what. So I've done a lot of rattles over the years. To come here, you have got to be. It's a last chance saloon, and they're desperate. You see, I was desperate. I wanted to change. I was done with it. So I knew. Telling you a wee bit about my mum, for example, they would kidnap me because I would go missing for months at a time. They'd be filthy and they'd see me and they'd get me in a van and they would take me home and lock me in a high flat with no drugs. They were done. You are right. So I've done loads of rattles over the years, medicated and unmedicated. So for me, I was scared to go to Betel because when my mum took me to the doctors, because we get referrals, you don't just take, there's things in place, doctors, psychiatrists and stuff, like a background report. And that you have to get that done. So my mum, me, I think it was my granda, was in a room and the doctor said, no way can she go somewhere like that and come off the amount of methadone. I'm out, I can't do it, because she's a lifetime addict. And my mum was like, I'm going to take the risk, because she's dying anyway. You see, my mum knew the Lord, yeah. So for me, I can only tell you what I've witnessed from everybody coming in. They're desperate. So they've done all that. They've done all the detox. I've done a 5-day detox. I came out, I was still rattling. I needed the drugs. I've done a couple of weeks and stayed clean. Do you know what I mean? Really, it was sheer desperation. So a lot of fears instilled before you come in, because you're told you can't do it. I was like, yes, Mum, I'm not going there. I don't need to go there. I'm all right. I need to stay on methadone. And I wasn't ready. But then time I was ready, and it took years. Do you want to add anything yet, or how did they do it?
They do, and I think actually Birmingham at the moment are doing something where, because some medication and some mental health, you do need to still be medicated. So I think Birmingham are actually the Birmingham Betel Centre are pairing up with a GP and are having people to doing a small sort of detox or some sort of medication whilst being in Betel, but that's something new that's being put into place at the moment. And the methadone is advised that you come down to a certain amount, a safe amount before you do come in. But it didn't used to be like that when I came in 10 years ago, and it was you just come straight off it, and I mean, it's a scary thing to do. But I mean, I'll share something. I know. It's a very scary thing to do, to commit, to take that step and to leave everything that you think has sort of helped you for so long, and you feel like you're going to be sick and you're going to be in discomfort. And I can share, like, I've seen many men come in who should have really, really, really bad detoxes. But they've come in and they've gone, I haven't really had a detox. I don't really feel the sickness or the illness. I mean, they've had a few nights of, not sleeping and a little bit of discomfort, but what they were expecting to come in and experience, they're like, wow, I just don't experience that. I mean, I know people have come in, and even family members have come in and dropped their kids off, or sons and daughters off or whatever, and they go, oh, there's a real peace in this place, and that's the peace of God, and I mean, it's only God that can do some things in our lives, and doctors and stuff like that, I'm not discrediting them, they do a good job, and there is a place for medication, but sometimes putting our faith in God, He just does something miraculous, and He heals us, and He takes us through that discomfort and that. But yeah.
I just want to add to it, all my experience of witnessing thousands been set free. I've never seen anybody die of doing a detox. And like Andy's saying, they all say, why was I so fearful? I'm so scared. I was crippled for years, scared to come in because you can't smoke. You can't. Men and women are. Yeah, it's like. But you see that for me now, smoking I'd be as well just staying a crack pipe or putting a needle in my arm. I'm done with that. Why would I want it? That's crazy. I'm free, total freedom. Nothing that I could have done because I tried over the years. I think being like in an addiction for as long and trying to fight it, not always wanting to be that, but never feeling good enough to get out of it. It's just amazing, honestly. I've never seen any, like, when we take people in, some will be hallucinating. It might last for 2 weeks. So we do something called shadowing. So yeah, we have jobs to go to the next day. And it depends how many's in your house to how long you'll stay up. We take shifts, so you could be up for 2.5, 3 hours at night time every day until they're detoxed and go to work. So it can take its toll. But when you see someone like come in and imagine that flower and they love and they just blossom and then they're on fire for Christ, it's so rewarding. But I think a lot of people stay in that. Maybe they don't want to get clean, don't think they can make anything with their lives because labels are put all over us, you know, junkie, this, that, and next thing, God, because we can't take them labels off. But through time and replacing His word, the truth, and getting that and absorbing that, I don't feel like any of that. I forget sometimes, and like Andy was saying, you get complacent because I forget, and then you come onto the street and you see, and my heart breaks because but I am not somebody to go, oh, like, nah, look, they're rubbing their wounds. No, I'm like, it's a choice. You've got a choice. There's somewhere you can go if you want help, you know, and love wins every time. For me, being able to be there, it was their love that carried me in the way that they were. Being in prison, being on the streets, being in violent things was like a nightmare. You know, you wouldn't want to. I never seen any way out of that. And I always had my guard up to protect myself. But when I came in here, it was so different. So different, because God's in it. It's His house. You're not even allowed to slam a door. So if you slam a door, it's a lot of discipline. Don't be shouting and bawling. We don't do that. You don't do that here. You know, this is healing houses. You know, it's not great all the time. But I've never seen anybody even hit anybody or nothing. It's just amazing because they're so desperate to change and so desperate to keep it like that we just lock arms with each other and we're just constantly helping. Anyway.
Do you have much opportunity to witness to teenagers?
So one of my ministries was going into schools and doing prevention talks. Realising, I mean, a lot of the schools that I had been in, it wasn't really so much heroin. This generation's a bit smarter, but all the other stuff that I've never even, Mambo and all these other things that are coming out just now are just crazy. But it's trying to tell them at the age of 14, I was a class clown and was up for anything and where that can lead. And you'll find when you go in that they're very receptive to it and they can get a shock. I'd like to do more of that, but I think where we're at, we're so consumed by the day-to-day there at the moment. But we go to like outreaches and stuff like that where, you know, like something like this, worship, maybe have... So what was your name again? Is it... Aye. Diane. That was lovely to hear. They were sharing last night what you do, and I can remember going somewhere. I think you said kind of. I always travelled somewhere to try and get clean, so I'd be in I've even been to Uganda. I've been all over the place, right? But one of my times I went to Bolton, and I found a lady there, just like you, and she had a place like you've described to me. I was filthy. I was rotten. and she let me get a shower and gave me a toothbrush. I had no clothes, and gave me a change of clothes. And so I just want to say thank you. You're doing an amazing job. And I said to Leslie earlier, it'll be exciting to hear stories about what's going to come out of that. And the referral and the connection and all interlinking, and everybody here's got a part to play in that. You know, we're going to need new youth rising up. We're going to, because you've got all that here. It's God's doing a new thing in here, in this town, and it'll be exciting. But well done for taking it on. You know.